Good afternoon. It's the Ian and Jane show, but not at Edinburgh Fringe anymore. We're still doing the Edinburgh Fringe, but we're doing it from Yorkshire, and this was our first online show proper. We have tried to watch a couple of other shows, but had to abandon them. One of them due to the fact it was poor sound quality. But anyway, this was The Art of Facing Fear, World United. Do you want to read the blurb?
Yeah,
Jane?
I've got, so it's interactive online performance. This award-winning online play was developed when the world went into lockdown. 20 performers from 5 continents engage with audience members from all over the world to discover the art of facing fear.
It just says a little bit extra. This production has already been seen by over 30,000 people. And if you haven't seen it, you must. Unless you believe that humans do not need to survive. That's an odd thing to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was... so it's a paid show. Today was the last time you could see it on the Fringe, but I'm sure there'll be other ways to see it. It cost £10. And it was Fringe online via Zoom. And at the start, we had to make a few alterations to your Zoom settings. So if you've never used Zoom before, which most people have these days, but you have to have the latest version installed. We actually linked it to our telly so we could both watch it better than looking at it on a laptop, and put it through the hi-fi, which the sound quality was pretty good, I thought, really.
And can I just say, they also gave you instructions if you were watching it on your phone.
Yeah. So they did that right at the beginning, so that took about 5 minutes, didn't it, really? And then we were asked to make sure that we could talk in the chat part of Zoom, which we all could, and then we were all asked to give some comment on how we, what were our fears throughout the pandemic, through lockdown.
Yeah.
Ours was the fear of not being in contact with people, really, and other people. There was 45 people in the Zoom call, but obviously over half of them were the cast members.
Oh right, okay.
So the audience was about 20, maybe.
Oh right,
less,
okay.
Okay. I found it very confusing.
I did, I'm afraid, as well.
It was actually written. I'm going to ask you to read these people's names, right?
Okay.
This is
written by Ivan Cabral and Rodolfo Gárcia Vásquez, founders of São Paulo's experimental theatre group Os Satiros, and directed by Vásquez.
Yeah. So it certainly came across as a very experimental piece. Premise is that it's a pandemic, but not necessarily our pandemic. In the future, there was some talk of 550.
I thought it was
5,555 days
into lockdown.
They didn't say it was lockdown.
No, they didn't, did they?
They said it was something else.
Yeah.
Have I got that? I've got some notes on that. Because quarantine.
Oh, quarantine.
Quarantine was the word.
Okay.
And that sort of felt slightly confusing, because I'm thinking, are we talking about our pandemic when they were giving out some of the figures? I think I asked you at one point, did that many people die out? Because it was, and some of it I quite liked. I quite liked some of the visual effects that were used, and some of the singing. Some of they had bits of songs rather than complete songs. But overall, the whole thing felt slightly weird. And
I mean, we've read another bit where they say it was very surreal, and certainly some parts were very surreal, because you'd have people playing characters and you'd maybe focus on one individual, but then you'd have groups of characters doing who all had disguises on,
yeah,
which they then took off, which for me was sort of them saying, well, not necessarily that it was over, but they didn't need to play characters anymore, but where that was in a narrative, if there was a narrative, I'm not quite sure.
No, and I didn't pick up on them. I mean, I really struggled with the narrative, of following the narrative. I liked bits, like I say, I liked bits of it, and I have to say, some of the characters I found particularly irritating and annoying, and I hate to say it, but quite silly.
I don't know if that was part of the surreal
element,
because I mean, if you'd been in quarantine for that long, it would get very surreal.
Yeah, but
I mean,
and he did get surreal to some extent.
I mean, I did like. I was impressed by how they've been able to produce the production, from all across the world. I think that's really impressive. And
it was quite. Sorry.
Yeah, and they've obviously gelled as a group.
Yeah.
Which is great, and that you picked up.
And it was quite nice to hear bits of music and singing from other cultures, which we wouldn't normally have heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there was a scene, sort of towards the end. I mean, it's billed as being an hour and a half, but actually the production itself, I would say, was about an hour.
Yeah, because you got a good 5 or 10 minutes right at the beginning.
And then there's room for chat at the end. Anyway, it was towards the end where it was just it was that device where there was a shape of a woman dancing, and then projected in her shape were lots of images. I mean, sort of historical events, like the Nazis were there, and there was famine and war, and it was very quick, so you just caught, but it was so, and I'm quite right, because they were quite fast images, but there was nothing positive in there.
No.
It was all things that have happened in the past, and not good things. So that was, but I'm not quite sure where that fitted. I mean, it was, it was interesting to watch.
There was the bit where the one of the black actors covered his head in cling film, and he wrapped it all around his head, and then obviously got to the point where he said he was struggling to breathe, till he actually, made a hole for his mouth. Now I don't know whether that was whether that was the George Floyd.
Oh right, okay.
Murder.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
That was quite powerful. But where that fitted in the narrative of the thing, I couldn't really say. I mean, that on its own was quite a powerful part, and the whole thing felt like bits that were really quite good, but I didn't follow a narrative at all.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the other thing that sort of crossed my mind was, I mean, this came out of the pandemic, lockdown.
Yeah.
Because that's when it was developed. And there was a part when they all they were saying that, you could come to India because you could just pay money and you could get a universal card that said you'd been vaccinated, and other places, where we don't wear masks anymore, and I was thinking that obviously my own experience, I mean, I can only talk of this country here, and people seem to think it's all over, and the fact that hardly anybody wears a mask, or you hear nothing about it particularly, even when a few weeks ago all the numbers were rising again, it didn't feature, and it was almost as though, was this piece maybe it's had less impact now because
that's a good point, actually.
Because we're not scared. Well, I say that a lot of people are. What I'm saying is that initial impact.
Yeah, it was scary.
Has gone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you saying about I mean, this is directly aimed at we're coming towards the last week of the Fringe, but Brian, one of our viewers, posted a message on a previous video, and he lives in Glasgow, and he comes through to Edinburgh, and he has caught COVID. He thinks he caught it. Came the first two Fridays. He thinks he caught it either in a venue, because venues were packed and nobody was wearing a mask, or on the tram, because the trams were packed and the buses are packed. Again, full of people not wearing masks. And I mean, we said right at the beginning, hardly anybody wore a mask. And towards the latter few shows that we went to, I wore a mask all the time. You wore it sometimes, and other people, we were seeing a few more people wearing masks. But clearly, the super spreader event is happening at Edinburgh.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because we know shows have been cancelled because of it. So it isn't. It hasn't gone away. It's still here.
No.
Yes, it's not. It's not as deadly.
No. So that aspect of it, hearing people talk from all over the world, you're thinking, so it's not just us. It's happening all over. So that was quite interesting. I mean, I took away quite a few bits and pieces from this, but maybe I just missed it, but I didn't get that sort of feeling of a strong narrative. Let's say that.
Smaller individual parts were I thought very good. Other bits slightly more irritating.
And I certainly like the overall concept. The fact is where it was developed from and who it's involved. I really like that. Yeah.
And I've read another piece where it says that the fact that it has to be at a specific time. It's 2:00 this afternoon, and I wonder whether some bits of it were actually pre-recorded, but I don't think they were. But what I've read, because I think these people are performing in their own homes.
Yes, I think so. And in fact, at the end, they invited, because they'd asked us to obviously mute and turn cameras off, and then they asked us to turn them all back on and join them on screen, which a few people did, and then there was a sort of final song, but then the guy said, that's it, it's sort of finished now, but he asked the cast and crew to stay, and they obviously all had a sort of
discussion about it.
Sort of review of how they all felt it had gone, but then this,
we were excluded from that as the audience.
Which is,
that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Yeah. How many stars?
I think I'd go for a 3.
3 from me too. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting piece.
Yes, yes, it is.
Just because it's finished at Edinburgh doesn't mean to say that you won't be able to see it, because we'll put the links down below to the theatre company so that you can actually try and find it. If you want to experience it, it's weird in places. Be prepared for that. But we like weird.
Yeah, we do like weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Bye bye.